it's so easy to talk about and much harder to actually execute. And we've kind of seen that in the Midwest a little bit as well. Everybody wants to talk about storage. It sounds great, but really we haven't seen a lot of adoption because of the economics around it. And I think you made a great point around the storage rebate that is included in the CEJA bill, the $250 per kWh, which I think is really going to help more companies, help more homeowners see the adoption of batteries.
Today on the Clean Power Hour, the solar industry is booming. My guest today is Eric Peterman. He is the founder and CEO of GRNE Solar. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
It's a rare treat to have a solar contractor, an EPC on the show. I seldom get to bring guests like you onto the show. And the thing that, spurred me to reach out to you was that GRNE has recently taken a major investment from Nelnet, which I thought was very interesting. And we're going to chat about that. Nelnet is known as a financial services company and now investing in clean green energy. We're also sitting on the coattails of the IRA being passed. That is the Inflation Reduction Act. So we have great solar legislation and clean energy legislation in the United States now at the federal level. You and I both live in Illinois, and we know the ups and downs of the solar industry here, but we are also in a boom period with the CEJA legislation, the Climate Equitable Jobs Act that passed last year. But GRNE has been growing. You are no longer just a regional player in the Midwest. You are now a super regional, and that's very exciting as well to see your growth as our industry is on, I like to say, a rocket ship. So really cool to have you on the show, Eric. Please, for our listeners, introduce yourself a little bit. What's your background? How did you get interested in clean energy and starting a solar company?
Yeah, great intro, Tim. So many great things going on in the industry right now. Always excited to talk about it and love your show and love all the great education that you're doing in the industry as well. Yeah, so born and raised in Illinois for me. I grew up near Springfield and have always kind of called Midwest home, and specifically Illinois. Went to Northwestern for industrial engineering, so I do have an engineering background. I love being able to tie my engineering background with sustainability. That's something that really gets me going every day. Have always stuck around Illinois after graduating from Northwestern. Went to the corporate world for a little bit, worked in United Airlines and priced airfare, and I learned quickly that wasn't for me. I needed a more dynamic workplace, so we started GRNE Solar. And when we originally started GRNE Solar, it was myself and my partner, Jess Baker, who lives in Nebraska. We started actually in small wind, and we developed a patent for a wind energy application. That's what got us kicked off. And then we found that small wind was a hard market to stay in, and a lot of moving parts means that there's a lot of maintenance for small wind turbines. So we diversified and saw the opportunity in solar. Solar was booming on the West Coast and booming on the East Coast, and we knew it was just a matter of time before it came to our neck of the woods in the Midwest. So we started doing solar before solar was sexy in the Midwest, and thankfully we got in at the right time, and we've are now celebrating 10 years. So 2022 marks 10 years since we started the company. Mostly focused on engineering, procurement, and construction, EPC solar firm, but I've had the opportunity to do some development ourselves as well.
Well, congratulations on hitting the 10-year mark. That's incredible. And as I was saying in the pre-show, it pays to be an early adopter. We, in the solar industry and in clean tech in general, right, the world is our oyster. It is going to be pure growth for the next 30 years. I tell my children and my younger colleagues, whether they're in energy or in other industries, look at clean energy, look at clean tech, because it is pure growth for the next 30 years. It's a great economic opportunity. It's good for people. It's good for profit. It's good for planet, I like to say. And it's just such a win-win. It's such a feel-good industry. And there's so many mission-driven entrepreneurs and professionals in our industry. That's what I love. I'm a lifelong environmentalist and ecologist. and green business enthusiast, and it's just wonderful to be in the mix, working day in and day out with so many wonderful people who are changing the economy and changing the built environment for the greater good. So that's cool about your origin story. I did not know that about the wind invention, and I love wind energy. John Weaver and I, my co-host, talk about it a fair amount on the news roundup every week. But large wind is really where the action is. Small wind is still quite challenging. I do run into small wind turbine makers who are, fighting their way forward and trying to carve out a niche, but it's a tough slog. Solar is very competitive. In the greater scheme of things, wind and solar do complement each other very nicely. So, the wind tends to blow more at night and it tends to blow more in the winter. Both are times when solar is either not producing at all or producing less. So in the greater scheme, wind and solar are a great pairing. And then of course you add on energy storage with batteries or other forms of energy storage, and you have a clean grid. There's just no doubt, right, that the technology that we have today is good enough to completely decarbonize our economy. It's simply a matter of deploy, as Jigger Shah likes to say. So tell us about GRNE. Tell us about the Nelnet investment, and what is your vision for the company in the next 10 years?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. GRNE Solar has such a interesting story. We started with nothing, just myself and Jess, 2 employees. I love to think back on those times because we got to do everything. We were the marketing department. We were also the sales department and the install department and the inspection department and everything. So I love that we had kind of those humble beginnings where we kind of bootstrapped it and did it all on our own first with just some small investment from ourselves and some friends. So Jess and I were the first 2 employees. Now we have almost 100 employees. So we've seen kind of the growth that started in the 2 areas where we live, which is Illinois and Nebraska. Jess lives in Nebraska. And then we just started to continue to grow from there. And we went where the opportunity was. We started in residential, then we saw opportunities come to us in the C&I space, commercial industrial, and then we've even had the ability to do some small utility scale projects as well. Community solar is something more recent that we've been focusing on as well. So we've kind of played in all of the different market segments, residential, commercial, utility. We've done rooftops, we've done carports, we've done ground mounts, we've done trackers. So we've had a lot of good experience over the 10 years that we've been in business. But I love that the way that we started. We didn't really get too far over our skis with growth. We grew organically, but really as Illinois came onto the scene with CEJA and then now with CEJA, the legislation that's supporting some of the solar development, we saw that we needed to get going quicker than we could currently keep up with, otherwise the market was just going to outpace us. So we never had the intention to sell our company. We always thought that we would just continue and keep doing what we're doing for the long run. But we continued to get inquiries from private equity and from larger strategic partners who said, hey, you guys are doing a great job. We want to continue to support what you're doing, but help you grow faster. So that's what really caught our attention. And we knew that we couldn't grow fast enough, just Jess and I and the leadership team that we had. So we started taking some of these conversations. So we talked with a lot of private equity firms. We talked with a lot of larger solar strategic partners and developers. And we finally got comfortable talking to Nelnet, which Nelnet is a financial services company. They mostly, focus on student loans. That's where they do a lot of business. They have gotten into telecommunications and some other areas as well, but they are based in the Midwest. They're based in Lincoln, Nebraska. So they're very similar to who we are as people and how we think about business. And they've wanted to get into renewable energy over the last several years. So they've been looking for a partner in renewable energy as well. So it just happened to be a great fit of timing and interest. And Nelnet has been a phenomenal partner. We closed the transaction on July 1st. So we're just a couple months into the transition now, but they are a diverse public company, over $3 billion in market cap. They have a strong relationship with a lot of education institutions, over 13,000 that they service right now. And they're looking very hard to get into the renewable space. And they've set some targets that are pretty eye-opening that they want to go after, considering the amount that we've done thus far. So right now, their goal is to deploy 225 megawatts by 2025. And a lot of that is going to be with their own capital. So it's exciting to be able to have all of that horsepower behind us now and really grow and keep up with the growing industry and the growing market that we have.
Well, I think of GRNE as a fierce competitor in the commercial industrial solar space. Of course, you also have a residential division, which I know less about. Resi solar, as we call it. It's a both end, right? We need solar at all scales: residential, commercial, small utility, and large utility. And indeed, that's what we see happening across the Midwest now, and including some very, very large projects in places like Wisconsin and Indiana, and slowly but surely in Illinois. I'm curious though, when you sold a big part of your company to Nelnet, and you're grabbing onto a grander vision, you have deeper pockets, right? And that allows you to be more aggressive and to grow geographically and grow, as the market is booming. I mean, the IRA legislation is estimated, by some estimates, to give us a 3 to 5x growth in solar and wind and battery storage in the next 5 to 10 years. It's extraordinary. So my question is, how have things changed? And I mean, deeper pockets is great. Everybody dreams about having deeper pockets, but then you have a problem, right? You have to do something with those resources, and you have to not trip over yourself and get out over your skis, so to speak, as to use your expression.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. And so I'm just curious how you're approaching that, and how do you see the geographic marketplace? If you would just touch on a few highlights of where the opportunity lies for GRNE.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I think that's a great point. And one of the reasons why we hadn't grown faster than we did was we were kind of wanting to grow organically and not get too far ahead of ourselves. And with not only the capital investment from Nelnet, but some of the shared services that they have. They're a well-established, very large company. So seeing synergies on our end with financing and accounting and HR and hiring, that's one of the largest struggles that we have right now, and growing fast enough with the industry is just finding people to help execute projects. So I think there's a lot of additional benefits that we're realizing from the transaction, and we had hoped that would be the case. They own another company that's in telecommunications that installs infrastructure. So we have partnered with them to just be thought sharers and understand best practices in the marketplace. They're out in the field just like we are, on people's homes, in the community, installing stuff underground. So there's a lot of the same challenges that we're seeing with them, and we have the opportunity to, like I said, be thought partners there and learn from best practices. So that's another benefit that we see. So being prepared for the growth and not just having that money is something that we've really realized with the Nelnet folks. And like I said, they're based in the Midwest, just like we are. They've got really conservative values and feel like that we're like-minded in a lot of things. With that being said, extremely growth-minded. So going into new markets is something that we are evaluating right now. Just earlier this year, we opened a couple more branches for GRNE Solar We opened a central Illinois branch in Bloomington, Illinois to cover the central part of the state. So we are able to cover now Bloomington, Springfield, Peoria, and Champaign in the central part of Illinois. And then in St. Louis, Missouri, we just opened a branch as well to help cover the southern part of Illinois and then get into the Missouri market as well. So those are a couple new branches that we've had. And we're currently engaged on several projects in the Colorado market. And we're looking for space there to be able to open a branch here very soon before the end of the year. So Colorado is a new space that we'll be entering. And then, as we plan for 2023, expanding in the areas of the Midwest and starting to grow even further east and west from there. So, we've started looking at places like having a physical location in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, and then as we get to the coast, seeing what type of strategic partnerships we can achieve there so that we can continue to grow our coverage map.
I'm curious what you make of the Colorado market. I think of Colorado as a relatively mature solar market. It certainly, was an earlier adopter than the Midwest. We have very cheap, dirty power here in the Midwest. It's a mixed bag. Some of it is clean too. 40% of our grid is nuclear power, which is very low carbon. But we also have a huge fleet of coal and natural gas plants, and those are slowly but surely being shuttered and converted to wind, solar, and battery storage. And Xcel is one of the companies that operates in Colorado and is in the news for making that transition as a utility writ large, right? They are converting their fleet. I don't know what the deadline is, 2035 or 2040, but they're in that game. But what do you make of Colorado? And it's easy to say, oh yeah, we're going to go to this market or that market. It's a totally other thing to execute on that, and then you're in the pond with some very established companies who are operating further west in the Arizona and Colorado and Nevada markets, for example. But what do you see in Colorado?
Yeah, absolutely. And you couldn't be more accurate, Tim, in that it's very easy to talk about it. It's a whole nother thing to actually try to do it and execute it. And that's been our position for a couple of years now. We've wanted to be in Colorado for 2 years, and we haven't been able to dedicate the time or the resources to actually get it up and running, mostly because we've had to focus our time and attention in the Midwest because we've been too busy. So we had Colorado on our map to open in 2020. We had to redivert some of our time and attention to focus on the Illinois market because of the growth and potential that we had here. So we're a couple years behind where we wanted to be in deploying Colorado. And like I said, we wanted to do it the right way. We didn't want to just open it just to open it. We have 5 community solar projects that we're building in Colorado right now that we'll be mobilizing on here in the next month or so. So now that we've got a pipeline and established source, it gives us more of the momentum to set up shop in Colorado and be more of a permanent structure. We like the demographics in Colorado. It's a well-established market, like you said. Yes, there are some other players there, but I don't think that makes us shy away. But we like some of the other things that they have there, and that they're starting to adopt more building codes that make new construction mandate solar readiness. So having some features of new homes or new construction built in to where it's easier to put solar on it. So running a conduit from your utility room up to your attic, or building in a raceway on a commercial building so that you've got space to be able to run your solar from your roof down to your utility room. So those type of things are forward thinking, and we love to see that, and we think it's going to be a great market for us.
I'm glad you mentioned solar readiness. In California now, they have legislation that all new residential construction has to have solar on it. And where California goes, so will the rest of the country eventually go. They are the early adopter. And when you go to Colorado, I went there, I think 4 years ago, and you see entire subdivisions where all the homes have solar on them. We're not there in Illinois yet, but the day is coming right? When this will be a way to market to consumers who want clean energy. Consumers understand that this is the future, and it's a way to clean the air, improve human health, and step back from the brink of climate chaos. Three very important things, all the while turning a profit and growing the economy and creating jobs and educational opportunities and careers. And this is just a wonderful confluence. But and congratulations on building 5 community solar projects in Colorado. We love community solar here in the Midwest, with a strong market in Minnesota and now in Illinois, burgeoning markets hopefully in Wisconsin and Michigan, crossing my fingers, and Ohio as well. And so I'm just curious though, what can every EPC has a slightly different business model when it comes to, for example, the boots on the ground. Are you performing the installation labor yourselves on these projects in Colorado?
Yeah, that's a great question. We try to, as much as possible, to touch every part of the project with GRNE Solar W-2 employees. We will subcontract out work on occasion when needed. If there's an area that just doesn't make sense for us to travel to, or that we can find somebody that is a better fit, then we have a lot of great partners, and we're not shy about making sure that we take care of our customer, whether that's our employees or a subcontractor fulfilling the work. But we have built out our team everywhere from marketing to sales to engineering to electricians to installers to admin staff, to be able to have everybody under one roof that touches a project. So our focus, Tim, is to have GRNE Solar employees, boots on the ground, doing the install from the post pounding to the racking to the module installs, all the way to the electrical, as much as possible.
Very good, very good. Well, let's talk about our home state a little bit. We have this amazing legislation called CEJA, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act of 2021, and it has major incentives for solar and battery storage and energy efficiency and electrification of transportation. It takes all these things to clean the grid and make the clean energy transition. I see on your website that you are getting in the storage game though. And we have a $250 per kWh, that's kWh, not kW, for storage now in Illinois, which means that when you buy a battery, it is paid for very typically now within a couple of years, because that is a very generous incentive. Plus you can take the ITC. We have a 30% ITC for standalone storage at the federal level, and of course, historically for solar and storage. And these combined are just really solid opportunities for business owners. And if you're listening to this and you don't understand the value that a battery brings, think of the battery as a sponge. A solar array produces energy for your facility when the sun is shining. The battery can absorb that energy when you have extra solar energy and then feed it back to the grid or the facility at some later time, like at sundown, when the air conditioning is pumping, but the solar array is starting to produce less. But there's many services that batteries provide. We call it a value stack, and it's geographically specific. So you have to work with somebody who really understands that value stack in the specific utility territory that you're in. In Illinois, we're in PJM in Northern Illinois, and then in MISO in Central and Southern Illinois. And there are nuances. So you really have to find a partner. My preferred partner is Intelligent Generation. Shout out to Mark Thrum and company over there at Intelligent Generation, an Illinois company. And they have it dialed in a way that I've seen no one else dial in the value stack of storage here in Illinois. But tell our listeners a little bit how you guys perceive storage, and maybe if you have some examples of favorite projects you could highlight for us.
Yeah, storage has been the talking point for a couple of years now, and I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Tim. It's so easy to talk about and much harder to actually execute. And we've kind of seen that in the Midwest a little bit as well. Everybody wants to talk about storage. It sounds great, but really we haven't seen a lot of adoption because of the economics around it. And I think you made a great point around the storage rebate that is included in the CEJA bill, the $250 per kWh, which I think is really going to help help more companies, help more homeowners see the adoption of batteries. I will say, when Texas froze a couple of years ago in February, we sold a lot of batteries after that. People were worried about grid instability. People were wanting to be independent. And that's when we really saw the battery market start to take off. And just to be kind of transparent and frank too, there's been supply chain issues with batteries, especially on the residential side, between LG Chem and SolarEdge and the Tesla Powerwall, Enphase and Generac, those are some of the main battery suppliers. Getting a battery has not been easy. And that's been challenging to be able to communicate to customers who, yes, I want to move forward. I want to do solar. I want to do storage. And then to be able to have to go back to them and say, well, we've ordered your battery. It's going to take 6 to 8 months to come in. So hang tight. It just left a bad taste in people's mouth. And part of it is because of the uptick in adoption of electric vehicles. A lot of the semiconductors and raw materials that were being used for standalone solar batteries were now being diverted to electric vehicle production and manufacturing. So I hope that we continue to see more adoption. We have recently. We do a lot of Tesla Powerwall installs here in Illinois, but I think this rebate is really going to help to see more adoption. And I think a couple of things that you mentioned. Why would people use batteries? One, it's for battery backup. So if the grid goes down, then you have a power source at your home or your business to be able to deploy. But also, if people are on time of use rates, you can then use that to be able to store the power when it's cheap and deploy it when it's more expensive. And then you're actually making more bang for your buck. And as one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is education and getting people to understand how batteries can help you. So the more we talk about it, the more education, the more visibility in the marketplace, I think the more adoption we'll see.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Clean Power Hour or viewing it on YouTube. We do have a great YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, please go to cleanpower.group and hit that YouTube icon and subscribe to our channel. Of course, you can find all of our content on your favorite audio platform as well. So please give us a rating and review. Back to the show. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned resiliency. Of course, that is one of the primo benefits of batteries. If you have a solar facility alone, you can't get power from that if the grid goes down, right? It has to disconnect from the grid as a safety mechanism by code. Right. Add a battery and the necessary hardware to island and have a microgrid, then you're in business when the grid goes down and you have a battery, if your battery is big enough and you have the right hardware, right? So, and then this incentive, let's just talk about a Powerwall. To my knowledge, a Powerwall is like 13 kWh, and that's $3,250 of incentive from Illinois. Right. And then you're adding on the ITC, yep. And you're quickly getting to 60% perhaps of the battery is paid for pretty much right out of the gate, if you have a tax liability at all. And then you have this incredible resource for resiliency, for, you can do other things with a battery. And in the commercial world, we're doing things like frequency regulation, providing grid services, yep. Which can be a source of income. You are knocking down capacity charges. On the West Coast, they use batteries to attack demand charges. Here in the Midwest, we have relatively low demand charges, and we're attacking capacity charges, which are a cousin to demand charges. Mm-hmm. But capacity charges might be a third of a commercial customer's electric bill. And so when you have a big battery that you can then knock down those peak demand days, which we call them capacity days, you can really you can really generate tremendous savings. An example I like to use is, a big commercial solar project might be $5 to $10 million, and it'll produce over its lifetime about that much savings, $5 to $10 million in savings. When you add a battery, you're basically 3xing that ROI. And so, yes, it's a bigger CapEx on the front end. It's a little more complicated project, more permitting, more fire safety considerations, but the upside is tremendous. And and then supply chain issues are not for the faint of heart. We've had major supply chain discomfort for the last year and a half now, and it's probably not going away anytime soon. Especially with the IRA, right? And solar is booming globally, not just here in the U.S. And we're a small part of the global equation. The U.S. only consumes perhaps 10% of the solar panels that are made globally. China is installing twice as much solar, or 3 times as much solar than the U.S. is. They're going harder, faster after the clean energy transition, and they've got a ways to go. They're still installing coal plants too. It's a very ironic situation. Mm-hmm. But what else is on your mind though about the Illinois market, and what is it? How do you moderate the temptation to go after one segment versus another? Residential solar is a $20,000 to $30,000 investment for a homeowner. Commercial solar is a $50,000 to $5 million investment, a very different animal, a longer sales cycle, but they're just different segments. And then of course there's the utility market with community solar or even large scale solar. But how do you see Illinois taking shape, and what should potential customers, I guess, keep in mind? Like, solar's still new, so people need education. They don't necessarily know what it is. And then sometimes people are cautious about these waves of incentives. They don't trust the government. And this is something that the government is doing. So what do you say to your potential customers?
Yeah, there's a lot in there, Tim. Great points. The biggest challenge or hurdle that we see still to this day, and it's been the same for the past 6-7 years, is education, and just helping people understand how solar works, how the economics work, and what it can do for them. And it's gotten a lot better as people see more solar, as they start to understand it a little bit better. We see more market adoption, and it's still a challenge though, is just helping people understand and helping people get educated on what solar can do for them and how it works and how the economics work. So that still continues to be one of the largest hurdles. And we do things, like podcasts. We have our own podcast called What's Up. We do community events where we go to libraries and take Q&A. And we try to be an independent thinker and independent source of information for consumers and for businesses who are thinking about going solar. Education is the biggest hurdle still. When we think about Illinois, early on, we had to be a little bit of a chameleon as a company and kind of do whatever market opportunity was there. They didn't have CEJA when we started. They didn't have CEJA, and they didn't have all these incentives. So when a residential customer wanted solar, we were there. When a commercial customer wanted solar, we were there. And when a utility customer wanted solar, we were there too. And we had the opportunity to play in all those spaces. And what we've done now as we've grown is actually built departments that focus specifically on those segments. So like you said, Tim, in segmenting out, residential is a world of its own. We have a residential department that only focuses on residential. C&I, commercial industrial space, is different. The incentives are different. There's depreciation. There's a whole different slew of things that are totally separate from what the residential market does. So we have a C&I team that only focuses on C&I. And then same for utility scale. Everything changes in each of those 3 markets. We also participate in the Illinois Solar for All program in Illinois, which is a tremendous program targeted for helping low-income communities and low-income households go solar. the incentives are stronger in those markets if you qualify. So we're proud to be an Illinois Solar for All approved vendor and helping those communities go solar as well. So that's how we view Illinois, Tim, is in those different segments. We have a residential team, a C&I team, and a utility scale development team that helps execute those. And it's almost 3 different businesses within one. And we've tried to play the umbrella over all of them. But there's so much opportunity that we have to specialize in those specific areas.
Yep. Well said, and thanks for highlighting the importance of education. That's really my raison d'etre here at the Clean Power Hour, is to provide good, credible, and just sweeping content around clean tech and clean energy for facility owners and energy professionals. And that includes, everything from installers to project managers to financiers to manufacturers and engineers and everything in between. So reach out to me here. I'm TG Montague and on Twitter, and that's my Gmail handle. And you can also find all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. That's our website, cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. That helps others find this content. Eric, in our last few minutes together, I'd like to wax poetically, perhaps, about the future a little bit. We have a great foundation now in the industry. We're installing mature technology when it comes to solar panels, and quickly maturing technology when it comes to batteries. You are so, perfectly staged to, become perhaps a national solar company someday. And I'm curious, just what can you say about, this injection of capital that you're now riding, and so many good things around the market with the IRA legislation, which, really should give us 10 years of very stable incentives with the ITC, which now applies to, for example, interconnection costs, and other nuances in equipment that it didn't cover before. So it's even more generous. It's not just an extension, so to speak. It's really an upping of the game. And if you're not in clean tech and you're listening to this, please reach out to me. I love helping people get more connected. And we'll wrap up with some contact information so people can find you, Eric, as well. But what do you say to either, customers, but also just professionals who are in our industry here in the Midwest? What's in your crystal ball?
There's a lot in the crystal ball, as you've just said, Tim. The crossroads that we're at right now, federally with the IRA being passed, and here locally in the state of Illinois with all of the legislation as well, and in other states that are continuing to push sustainable and renewable energy policy forward. It's just an unbelievable time to be in the market and to be in the space. And we don't have enough workforce in the space right now. So if you are listening to this and you're curious about sustainability, but you don't have a resume that has renewables on it, that's okay. We need a lot more people in the workforce to help us with this clean energy revolution right now. So that's been one of the challenges as well, is there's so much good to go around and there's not enough people to help participate in it. And that's one of the things that I say too about other companies. Solar is so unique in that, yes, we're competing, we have competitors and there's competition in the market, but there's so much work to go around that we can't do all of the work ourselves, and neither can another company. So we have to support each other and make sure that we're doing things the right way. I'm the vice president of the Illinois Solar Energy Association, and one of the reasons I got involved, it was to make sure that we have good quality projects being installed. Not stuff that is taking advantage of consumers or that is shoddy workmanship or anything like that. If we're going to survive as a solar industry, we've got to do it the right way, and we've got to make sure that we're building good quality projects, that we're selling good quality projects, and that as an industry, we're supporting each other. So that's something that I very much believe in. And there's so much, it's hard to talk, we would need another podcast to talk about all of what the future might hold. But I think workforce is something that we need help with. So encourage folks to get involved, to learn and to get educated. And for us specifically, Tim, where we're going is a hard focus in C&I for sure with the Nelnet partnership, but also in community solar. That's something that Nelnet is very supportive of and wants to grow into. We're very good at building community solar, but we haven't really had the resources to develop or manage community solar subscriptions. So now with the Nelnet partnership, I think we'll be able to see a lot more opportunity in that space as well. And then lastly, like I said, spreading our wings and growing into new markets. So there will be a GRNE Solar in Colorado very soon. And as we continue spreading east and west, hopefully, like you foreshadowed earlier, Tim, that GRNE Solar will be a national player at some point in the future.
Well, thank you for your service to ICEA, the Illinois Solar Energy Association. If you're not in touch with your state solar energy association, that's a great clearinghouse for jobs, for activism. Every state has to have its organization or organizations to further clean energy legislation and grow the industry writ large. And we are hiring in this industry by gobs. We need tens of thousands of more people to come into solar and battery storage. And thank you for producing What's Up with Marie Berquist and Connor Allen. Shout out to Marie. I've gotten to know Marie a little bit on the podcast roundtable that Mike Casey organizes at TigerCom. Really appreciate what you guys are doing with What's Up. And check out all of their content at grnesolar.com/what's up, WATTS, What's Up. So with that, how can our listeners reach you, Eric? And thanks again for making time for the show.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. Our website has a lot of great content on it, grnesolar.com. Definitely check out the podcast, the What's Up podcast, as Tim mentioned. There's a lot of great content there as well. And happy to get connected with folks as well. My email is Eric, ERIC, at grnesolar.com. Would love to talk to you, hear feedback, and get you plugged into the industry. As Tim said, we have 15 open positions that we're hiring for. So we are always looking for good people.
Excellent. Well, with that, let's grow solar. I'm Tim Montague. Have a great day, everybody.